Hello and welcome to Let's Get the Skinny. Today on the show, I am super excited. I have the founders of one of my favorite new products that I just discovered this year, James Berry. James, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Kiki.
And in this episode, we are going to get ready to spice up our wellness game. James is the mastermind behind Pluck seasoning. With a passion for nutrition and a dash of culinary magic, James is on a mission to revolutionize how we think about healthy eating, one sprinkle at a time. So James he's had over 16 years in the culinary field. I didn't even know this, but you started as a private chef cooking for celebrities. Some include Tom Cruise, George Clooney, Barbara Streisand. But most recently, you've created this incredible product called Pluck, and it's your first functional food product. It's an organ-based seasoning. So for those of us who have been looking to incorporate more liver and organ into our diet, but we don't necessarily want to eat those foods, specifically, Pluck is really great because you can literally just sprinkle it in anything. I put it on my morning eggs every morning, but actually this morning I just had a smoothie and I put it in there and I just used the pure blend and I didn't even taste it. So can you share, James, a little bit more about the inspiration behind how did you come up with this and like why?
Yeah, well, you kind of nailed it. I mean, I too do not want to eat organs, but yet I recognize how important they are for our diet. I mean, we are a nutrient deficient society, but we're not calorie deficient, which is a very important distinction. That means we're eating plenty of food, we're just eating the wrong foods. And it's really interesting. I mean, we can talk about the environment and taking care of our planet, but the reality is when we slaughter an animal, we're not using like 40% of that animal. We're just focusing on muscle meat, and there's so much more nutrition from that animal that we're just kind of tossing away or passing on to the pet food industry. And yet then we're turning around and purchasing all these supplements. We're spending billions of dollars in supplements. So my focus is like, well, let's first of all use the whole animal. That is the easiest way to honor an animal, is to use the entire animal. And then secondly, let's get these nutritious organ meats that are incredibly easy to absorb into our bodies. Let's get those into our diet so that we don't have to take all those supplements. But yet I recognize that we have hurdles, and I have those same hurdles. I either think they're kind of icky, the concept of the organ meats. I think they're icky. Some people have difficult sourcing them, and then some people don't know how to cook them. And I am, even though I'm a chef, I am amongst that group, and anyone listening who is in this group will understand what I'm about to say, that knows how important organ meats are, have best intentions, go out and buy the organ meats, and then the organ meats just sit in our freezer for a year because we're still not familiar or acclimated to cooking them. And so they just kind of sit there because you're like, when am I going to cook it? How do I do this? I don't know. And I'm in that group too. So that's why I created Pluck. I mean, Pluck, I'm a father as well, and I have two young daughters, and I was like, I want to get the most nutrition I can into their diet. And Pluck is a way for me to take the same ingredients that are in capsules. So that's freeze-dried powdered liver. This is what Pluck is, at least. Liver, heart, kidney, spleen, and pancreas. That's 5 organs. And I'm using the same ingredients that you find in capsules. So it's 100% grass-fed cows. They're freeze-dried and powdered, so they are the most nutritious you can get, other than eating raw. And then I'm adding, instead of putting in a capsule, and I'd love to talk about why I don't want to put it in a capsule, because it's very much in alignment with what you are passionate about. But instead of putting in a capsule, I'm combining them with organic spices and herbs. So you can just sprinkle it on your food. And not only, as you know, does it make your food taste better, but now you're increasing those nutrients that we're not getting. But we're doing it easy because we already season our food. So we don't have a new habit. This is like a health food product that's not requiring a new habit. You
Yeah.
just you just season your food, and now you're getting this bonus every time you do it. And as a parent, I love it because it's like easy peasy, first of all. And secondly, I don't have to deal with picky eating because my kids love it.
Yeah. And, it's interesting when you were saying about, kind of moving away from just focusing on muscle meat. I feel like bone broth was really having its day in the past, decade, whatever. And so it sounds like I think organ meat is going to now take over as what everyone is obsessing about. And so you're really ahead of the curve there. And I do want to talk about how it's more aligned for you to actually have it in powder form versus supplements. Now, I must admit, I do now take supplements, but there was a time that I actually had to just ease off because I was getting obsessed. And I think a lot of women that I work with that have orthorexia are coming out of it, there's like this obsession to fix ourselves and like, oh, like, I don't trust that my body can take care of itself. So let me just have all of these supplements. And it was getting to the point where I was downing like 30 supplements just with my morning water. And I felt like energetically, I was almost telling my body that it's like, you're broken and you need to be fixed. And so I do love that it's a food. It doesn't feel like I'm trying to fix myself. But I'm curious to your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think there's this concept of the magic pill, and I think we're all chasing it, right? And we're looking for, and this has been in the zeitgeist for a very long time, but we're looking for that pill that will give us everything we need for a healthy diet or longevity or whatever it may be. I mean, and there's people, I mean, you're saying you're taking like 30 capsules. That's actually pretty low compared to some of these people like Dave Asprey. I mean, he's taking over 100,
Oh
right?
my God,
And
crazy.
some of these people wear that with a badge. Like they're like, I'm so proud I'm doing all this. And I'm like, well, here's the issue I have with it. I'm not against taking supplements, but I do think that someone should be tested to know what they need. But here's ultimately what my biggest issue is that so there's a professor of archaeology named Bill Schindler. He wrote a book called Eat Like a Human. And he has a great quote. He says, "We are the only species in the world that looks to someone else to tell us what to eat." And let
Wow.
that land for a second. I mean, think about all the species on this planet. And we are the only one that has lost touch with their innate knowledge of what they need to eat to survive. Now, of course, there's lots of reasons for that. Our marketing is, of course, one of them. Our agricultural industrial system of agriculture is another. We've manipulated not only our brains, but we're manipulating our food systems, and so they're not as nutritious as they once were. So that's, of course, there's forces outside of us that are confusing us, right? But the only way to get back to your innate knowledge of what your body needs, because this is one of the things I hate about any bottle is like a bottle says, okay, take 2, or in the case of organ meat supplements, it will say take between 6 and 8. Well, how do they know what you need versus what I need? It's impossible for them to know. They're basing that number off of selling that bottle of supplements, and they know that if they put this many capsules in the bottle, and they tell you to take between 6 and 8, that you'll go through that bottle in 15 or 30 days. So, and then they'll sell another one, right? So that's what's motivating them. There is no clear guideline of what you need in terms of organ meats and what I need. There's none. So the only way for you to know what your body needs is to work with your own biological system. And where does that start? Well, that starts, like, if you think ancestrally, that starts with our eyes. We would see food in the distance, whether it was on a tree, a bush, or even an animal, right? We would see it in the distance. Then let's just say if it's something that we're picking from a vine or a tree, right? So we would then get closer, and then now we might smell it. So now we're using our sense of smell. Then we might pick it and we might put it in our mouth, and now we're getting saliva mixed with it. And we're starting to get taste, right? Our taste buds are starting to get activated. And then we start to, mastication begins, and we start to break it down. And once again, so all those pieces of sensorial feedback are informing our brain. A, is this nutritious? And B, does my body need this? And when we don't have that, when we just swallow something, it's guesswork. And I can use salt as an example. So if I put salt in your tongue, guaranteed your body will immediately tell you more or less. And most people will struggle to get like 3 dips of their finger and the salt on their tongue. Like most people can do is like 2. By the third one, the salt actually tastes different. Like it no longer tastes good. It's like it's like too overpowering, and your taste buds are getting blown out. And so it would be a struggle to get another one in. And that's beautiful, right? Because that's your body communicating with itself. Now, if you swallow a salt tablet, delayed response, 15, 20 minutes later, why am I bloated? What's going on here? Oh, I got too much salt. So one is working with your body and one is just guessing. It's like, you don't know. And I hear this constantly around organ meats, that people that are taking capsules, constantly I hear, I took the 6 to 8 capsules the bottle told me to take, and I felt nauseous. And I'm like, yeah, because your body may not need that. That might be too much for your body. If your elimination pathways aren't working, then that means you're assaulting your body with too much of this powerful tool. Like organ meats are powerful because they're not only so nutritious, but as I mentioned earlier, they're easily absorbed. So for someone whose body is compromised, whether that's their gut or their elimination pathways are like sweat, pee, poop, any of those pathways where the toxins are leaving our body. If those aren't working properly, you're going to feel nauseous by something you eat. That's very powerful.
Yeah, it's just like when they say you can't just, take these detox drops or whatever it is, because if you're not, sweating it out or, getting a colonic if necessary, whatever it is, it's actually just going to, the toxins have nowhere to escape. And I was going to ask you, can you like OD on organ meats? Because they do seem so potent, and the way that people talk about them, it's like, wow, that feels so rich. And even as I'm now incorporating them more into my diet, I sense that there's this just high quality density of them, which is amazing. And I'm, leaning into it. But there has been a thought in my mind that it's like, I wonder, like, could you overdo it with these?
You absolutely can overdo it with anything, whether it's salt or meat. I mean, anything you can overdo. But one of the ways to ensure you don't overdo it is to eat it, because similar to the salt, your body will start to reject it. It will taste different. Like you might, like, I don't know about you. Well, it sounds like actually this is true for you, but this is true for a lot of the customers we hear from, particularly kids, is when they first taste Pluck, they get like almost overly passionate about, like, you're like, oh my God, I need more, I need more, I need more. And I know I do believe it tastes good, but I think that's more about the fact that their body is like, oh my, I need these nutrients, right? So their body is hungry for it. I think to your point earlier, like a lot of people, when they first started drinking bone broth, that's how they felt. Like they almost felt like their body curling inward. It was such a warming effect, right?
Yeah.
And that's your body kind of like thanking you in a sense for these nutrients. But just like that is true, the inverse is true as well. Like if your body is like, I'm good, it won't taste right. You'll start to feel kind of similar to if you get too much fat in your diet. You just start to feel like, like I can't do any more butter or whatever it is. Like I can't do any more nuts. Like you start to OD. And I mean, and this is the argument so many of us are always saying, like around juice, for example. Like, so if you drink a glass of juice, that's like 5 oranges. Like it's one thing, a lot of people don't think about this, but it's like, try to eat 5 oranges. Like try to eat them. I'm not talking just the juice. Try to actually eat 5 oranges. You won't be able to do it. Your body will stop at one point because it's just too much.
Yeah.
And so that's the beauty of how we can get back in touch with our intuitive needs, is you just got to eat the food.
Yeah, totally.
And there is a place for the supplements. Like I don't want to gloss over that. If you're getting tested and you're depleted, yes, take supplements that will support in raising your numbers very quickly. But for the most part, most people are not testing. Most people are just guessing, and they're doing things because someone told them. And it's like, if you're not eating it, the only boss in your life is your body. That you know what I mean? Like your body knows everything it needs to know about you. And I'm always telling people this, for example, like around diets. I'm always like, look, I don't care what diet you follow, like do it, because we all have to have the dignity of our process around any diet, right? So it's like go the journey with whatever diet you want. But there's one person you need to listen to when you make a choice around your diet. It's your body. Your body will tell you whether that diet is working for you or not. If you're bloated, if you're getting skin issues, if you have foggy brain, if you can't sleep, those are indications it's not working.
Yep.
And so I hope that you, instead of being in your head, you listen to your body, and then you start to feed it different things. Let your body dictate the diet that it wants and needs. Don't let your head determine it, or this sense of bravado or ethics or whatever you think it is. Because I guarantee, and this is, we could go down a whole rabbit hole around what I'm about to say, but I'll still say it, which is, I guarantee that the thing that you think you're doing for whatever righteous reasons you're doing, I guarantee it's not correct. I guarantee it. Most people, and that's from, I'm talking meat eaters or plant-based, doesn't matter. I think people think they understand the food industry, but they don't. They really don't. And it is very much not what people think it is. An example of that is like plant-based people think that if they're eating grains, they're not killing anything. That's not accurate. If you talk to a farmer and you plow a field, the farmer will tell you things get killed in the process, from rabbits to ground squirrels to mice to doe. They all get slaughtered. So something for us to eat, something has to die. So now we have to just remove that kind of ethical, like righteousness, and just be like, okay, for me to eat, something dies. Now it's up to you to decide which of those foods do you want to put into your body. But don't pretend you're not killing something, because you are.
And I'd love to explore, because you are totally talking my language in that, get out of your head and back into your body. And I think so many people, especially the women that I work with, they're like, I don't have intuition around food. Like, I need someone to tell me what to eat. And of course, then I say, like, no, it's there. You've just been covering it up for so long. I'm curious, since you seem to have such a good grasp on this, did you have your own struggles? Was there a phase in your life where you were kind of more in your head? Because for most people that I feel like are really embodied around food, which it sounds like you definitely are, it's because they also lived on the opposite extreme for a period of time and they realize, like, okay, wait, like, just analyzing is really not working. I've disconnected from my body. So was that the same journey for you, or have you always just felt really embodied around food?
Well, I think you're extremely wise just to be aware of the fact that if anyone's in the health field, whatever that is, as a chef or a practitioner, that they came from, there's a reason, right? They came from something. And I think also, I just want to honor, like, if someone feels like they don't know, if someone feels they don't have intuition around what to eat, and is looking towards help, that's actually okay. Like, I wish that we were more in touch with our intuition, but at the same time, I would much prefer that someone ask for help than pretend they know what pretend they're more in touch with something that they're not.
Yeah.
Right. So I think being in a place, like, I always think of like prayer, for example, and I'm not necessarily a religious person, but I think about prayer around food, because I think that idea of being on your knees and you kind of your hands up or in prayer, like this idea of not only taking a breath before you eat, but just that idea of, like, asking for help is a very specific physical and spiritual position. And I really do believe that when we're in a position to ask for help, that means we're open. We're ready to receive. And that's a very important part of, I think, the human process, and one to honor. And I think a lot of people gloss over that and think, oh no, I got to have this all figured out. It's like, no, it's confusing out there. And so while we're talking about intuitive eating, yes, I want to support people in getting more intuitive, but I also want to acknowledge that it's freaking confusing. Like, it's really confusing and challenging, and that no one should feel alone with it. So kudos to you for asking for help. But in terms of my journey, I actually, in my early 20s, I got a kidney stone, and that was my first awareness. Kidney stone was incredibly painful. I hear it's the closest a man can get to having a baby, to give it perspective of how painful. And I luckily had a doctor where once I passed it, I asked, how did I get this? Because I was really confused. I was like, I don't understand. This was the most pain I've ever felt. How do I make sure I never get this again? And the doctor, fortunately, and because not all doctors will say this, he said, well, what have you been eating and drinking? And I was like, oh, well, I was drinking root beer every day and I was eating pizza. And because I was just finishing college and that's what I was eating every day. And he was like, well, how about drinking some water? And I'm like, but isn't there water in the root beer? Like it's carbonated water,
No,
but
that's
isn't
it.
there, right? I'm like, he's like, no, you have to drink water separately from whatever beverage you're drinking. And I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm in my early 20s and I did not know that the food I ate affected my health. And of
Yeah.
course, there's still people that don't understand it. So I recognize that that's not an obvious concept, even though it seems like it should be, but it's not. And that was really the start of my process of kind of like just like from that moment on, I carried water everywhere I went. I started to just kind of explore like, okay, what does it mean then to be healthy? Like, because if the food we're eating, it affects our health. And really, that's ultimately like that's the thing we do the most of. Like, that's probably the first thing we should be looking at. And so then from that moment on, into the next 20-ish years, I was kind of going through the gamut of like food addictions that played out in the form of like starving myself most of the day because I would just get so busy, to then like binging, to getting really addicted to chips and salsa, like that crunch, wanting that crunch, and to eventually getting tested and learning I had some parasites, and like just realizing that my body was like being controlled in ways that I thought was just food behavior or food addiction. But actually I was like, oh no, these parasites are making you more carnivorous and making you kind of always hungry and things. And then as I kind of eradicated that stuff, I was then able to get a hold of like, oh, okay, now I'm no longer being pulled in one direction or the other around my food. And now I can make choices around what I eat. And then, and then there were still so many years of like getting a hold of like food cravings and addictions and things like that. And now I can honestly say like I have some space from it. Like I have enough space, enough distance between that to be able to like consciously make choices. And what's really helped is knowing, well, what is my why? Why do I want to do this? And it can't just be to lose weight. It can't, because that's not a strong enough why. It's too surface level. It has to be deeper. And for me, it's around my kids. I truly want to be present for my kids. I want to age. I want to age gracefully and as kind of in my body and capable, like where my body works well, as long as I can. And I'm 50 now, and if I want to see my oldest daughter get to 21, let's say, that means I'll be 61, or sorry, 60. So in 10 years she'll be 21. So that means I need to make sure that I'm, taking care of my body and making sure. And then if I want to see her into her 30s, I'm going to be in my 70s, right? So like I really need to make sure that I'm making choices that are beyond just that immediate gratification, but that are like truly in alignment with what my mission is, which is to live a long life that is not in a wheelchair or in a bed, but a long life that is functional and present, presence of mind and whatnot, and has a health, that I'm healthy.
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned that there is that chapter where you do need to eventually take that space, right? So you can see the forest from the trees, because I think we get so in it and we're in the weeds of it, and then we do need to just like take a step back. And I love that saying of just like, okay, well, reconsider your why. And it's always more than weight loss. It's usually, either to be loved, or in your case, kind of to give love over the longer term.
Totally.
So in wrapping up, I think you're the absolute perfect person to ask, because it seems like you actually do live and preach and are balanced. I talk to so many wellness professionals, and I always ask them like, oh, okay, so like, what's a ritual that you do, or what's this a health practice that you really feel like adds a lot of value to your life? And of course, I hear the most extreme things and that are like so inaccessible. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, right. But I'm really curious as to yours, because I feel accessible for most people. So if you had to choose one thing, beyond food, whether it's a mindset thing or an actual, habitual behavioral type thing. What do you think that is something that you're really treasuring in your day-to-day lifestyle right now that's helping you thrive and create this long-term lifestyle?
Yeah, I love this question because I think yeah, I know that answers can go all over the place and probably go towards things like cold plunges
Yeah.
and saunas and stuff like that these days. But I'm all about like how can I simplify health? How can I make it achievable? And that's really what Pluck is, right? It's to take something that I know is very important for us to eat, but make it as easy and delicious as possible for you to get into your diet. So that's how I also look like for me, the mindset that's been helping me the most these days is just it's basically just a habit. It's like focusing on like creating very sustained habits. So meaning like I wake up at the same time every day. So 4:30 in the AM. That's the time that fits my lifestyle. So I wake up 4:30 every day. It doesn't matter what I'm doing that day. It's very important to get your body locked into like what it should expect, right? So it's like I wake up, it knows when it wakes up and it knows when it goes. So I wake up at 4:30 a.m. and I go to bed between 8:30 and 9. That's it. Like I do those things every day. And and when I'm going to mention some other things, but for people listening, I'm not necessarily recommending you jump into the deep end and do everything I'm talking about, but just try just one of these things. Like set the schedule that fits your day and incorporates health, like meaning fitness and eating from home. So those are very important pieces, right? But set the time, the wake up time and sleep time that are going to be most conducive towards that. And then just do that. And you'll see your body will start to regulate and almost wake up naturally to the point where you don't even need a clock. And your body will get on this regular pattern. And it's amazing because then once your body's out of this fight or flight kind of like craziness, it actually can start to relax and release some of the fat or some of the toxins or whatever it is, the inflammation. It starts to release all these things because it's no longer in that fight or flight. It's more in that parasympathetic mode. So that's one thing I do is I stay on that habit and that schedule. And then I build exercise into my day every single day. It's just the time of that exercise changes based on my wife's schedule as well. So we both wake up at 4:30, but one day I go to the gym really early, then the next day she goes to the gym really early. So we flip-flop on who gets to go to the gym really early because we can't both go at the same time. And then I pick a diet, and no matter what diet that is, just pick one and stick with it though. Like really stick with it. And so for me, it's low carb. Like I just carbohydrates, meaning like starches, potatoes, pastas, they just don't, my body doesn't receive them well. It really doesn't. I get dandruffy when I eat that stuff. I feel bloated. And so I've just cut them out and I cut out all sugars. Sometimes I'll eat like a piece of fruit, but it's pretty minimal. So I find that I mostly eat animal protein, some kind of fat, and then I eat some vegetables here and there. And so it's like that's really all I do. And then so I'm picking that low carb diet. I stick with it, and then going to bed at that time. I try to have my food end by like I eat around the same time too. So I eat between 5 and 5:30. And that means if I'm going to bed at 8:30, that's a good 3 hours of digestion before I even go to bed. So I just try to like literally stay on target. And I'll just share this one last tool that so many people don't do, but it's literally one of the health tools that will move the needle the most. And it's a really simple one to do, but once again, you just got to choose to do it. It's menu planning. It's meal planning. It's seriously like an amazing tool. And you just pick one day a week. We do ours on Sunday. We do it in Sunday morning. We plan the whole week. And then we go out and buy those groceries. And you're creating a grocery list based on the food you're going to make that week. So you're not making impulsive purchases. You're not You're not buying candy bars and all these other sugary things because that's not on your food list, right? And then you're eating from home, controlling your ingredients, which is really important. And you create this kind of like system of what your body knows. This is what's in the household. This is what I'm eating. You only bring in the food into your household that you want to eat. So you don't, like I said, you're not making impulsive purchases. You're not bringing in food that's just temptation food, because if you're like me, if it's in the house, you're going to eat it. So you're not setting yourself up to fail. You're setting yourself up to win.
I completely agree, which might sound, ironic as an intuitive eating coach. I think so many women think, oh, intuitive eating coach, that means I just have to be spontaneous about all of my
Yeah.
eating, and absolutely not, right? Sometimes the step forward so that you can be intuitive with your eating means having some support, having some structure. Just as you say, right now I'm doing my group program, and we're in the week that the women have just kind of completed their blueprint. And it's interesting how there's sometimes so much resistance to actually planning, because there's so much entangled with, oh, planning means that I'm restricting and it means that I'm making rules. And it's like, no. It's supporting yourself so that you can feel like you're in abundance with choices that make you feel good, which is exactly what you're saying. And I love that even how you talked about low carb. It's like, yeah, my body doesn't respond well to carbs. That doesn't mean that everyone needs to go low carbs and no one should ever eat bread again. It's like, you're in a chapter of your life, and with your, particular biology, et cetera. It's also different for men, right? You've recognized what works for you, and it's also, maybe it'll work for the rest of your life, but also maybe you'll change it, and that's okay. So I absolutely just am so grateful for this conversation today, and seriously so grateful for Pluck. I'm in Mexico right now, and I ordered them when I was in Austin. I brought them here, and then I'm so excited to get to Toronto so I can stock up. And then when I'm in Greece, I'm going to be bringing my Pluck. There's a few key things that I bring all around the world with me, and now Pluck will definitely be one of them. So thank you so much for that. It's also because it's hard enough for me to figure out how to say cow or like goat in all these different languages of the different countries that I'm in. Never mind trying to translate, liver and all that jazz. So I'm like, easy. I have my Pluck now. So thank you. And for those who are interested in Pluck, where would be the best place to go to learn more and to stock up?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. You can find us at eatpluck.com. That's our website, or you can go to Amazon. We're sold on Amazon, and that's always a great choice if you're already someone purchasing from Amazon. But our website, eatpluck.com. You can also find us on socials. Usually it's eatpluck for the most part. I think on Twitter it's eat_pluck. But if you just do an eatpluck search, you'll probably find us. And then I'm Chef James Berry on Instagram and Facebook, and we have tons of recipes, by the way. If you are, because I'm definitely, I love supporting people's health with Pluck, but I don't want you to stop there. I mean, we have tons of recipes on how to incorporate organ meats into your diet, and so I welcome everyone listening. When you're ready to dive even deeper, please check out our website and look at the recipe section.
Beautiful. And I'll be sure to post all of those links in the show notes for those listening, so you can head on over there. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you, Kiki. It's been a pleasure.